So I'm going to take the opportunity, since I've got the mic, and nobody's going to be able to take it away in time. So the PQTN task force, we're always looking for more collaboration. We're friendly, mostly, and we're collaborative, so we're open to any inputs and suggestions, and particularly we're open to people that are willing to work with us and to contribute to the work that's being done. I think a couple of things I wanted to highlight. Someone mentioned actionable. So I think there's a lot of literature around what the threat is, the theory, the whole, quantum is coming, quantum physics. Obviously, all of that is extremely important, but it doesn't necessarily give people something to do. And what the PQTN is trying to do is to sort of turn all of that into something that's actionable from the point of view of the telcos. The other aspect that hasn't been mentioned, and I'm going to start the Q&A, maybe asking Luke a question. He's not prepared for this, but I'm sure he'll manage it. Ultimately, the operators play a really important role here, because we can define standards, but those standards will only get implemented if there's a market demand. So what is the role of the operator in?
Well, I'm going to turn it around, because what we need to do is look at the outcome that we're seeking, both for the security of our network and the way that we protect customer data, for all of the good reasons that we've been discussing. But it's the journey that Lamont talked about as well. We need to be in a position to put very, very clear requirements into our procurement chains, into our supply chains, so that we're able to pull through the right capabilities from our technology partners and vendors in the right time frame to be able to move us towards being quantum safe within an appropriate timescale for the types of threats that we're trying to counter. Prioritization is going to be super important, as we said before, and I think Gabby mentioned this, and Taylor and Ariston during the risk assessment paper. But that's our role. We need to make this a very, very clear mandatory requirement in the infrastructure that we look to procure in the future, to make sure that we're in a position to get the right outcome. But with that, then I think we need to give all of the people who've stayed with us to the end, thank you ever so much. Are there any questions, both for the fine panellists here, but also for the earlier speakers as well, all of whom are still lurking in the audience?
First of all, thanks. That was so interesting, and I think a lot of what we've been talking about today has been focused on the firmware and the hardware and the infrastructure. My company does outsource software development for critical applications. So my question is, from an application, software application, and even software platform standpoint, are there any new best practices, guidelines that are being offered out to in this post-quantum world?
Do I have any volunteers?
I think maybe Ray is.
So this is Paul Hoffman. Yes, and the best practice is work with your competitors. That is, interoperability is significantly more important than conformance. Conformance is hard. Interoperability, it takes a lot of sweat. And to do that, the best thing to do is to find groups like here and other places and say, where can we have a hackathon? Where can, we don't need formal interoperability, although formal interoperability is just fine. To start with, you need informal interoperability. And to do that, you need to take the initiative to talk to others, and again, probably your competitors, to say, let's sit down, let's have a hackathon, let's make sure at least we are doing it among ourselves, so that when other people want this, then they can come to us, and we already have the answer, and they have to interoperate with us.
One additional thing, engage with the open source community. That is going to be huge for the application development, software development community, because there's going to be algorithms hidden all over code that we use, you use, everybody uses, day in, day out, and there's no one who owns that software, no one who owns that code to update it. So that's going to be a really big effort that we all need to think about.
I think we have another question over there. I will just take the opportunity as well to thank you for allowing us to plug our next deliverable, which is indeed the best practices that we'll be publishing in February next year. So if you want to help us to pull that together, talk to us afterwards. Please.
Hi, Tony Rosati here. Question for Dustin. What is the role of hybrid key agreements? We have SB 856. We got Etsy's got a technical recommendation. It's in TLS. Tell us about hybrid key exchange. Why do we need it?
Yeah, so hybrid hasn't been mentioned much today, which it certainly could have been. And for those who don't know, the idea of a hybrid solution is where you're combining a classically standardized algorithm with one of these post-quantum or potentially even QKD or something like that. NIST hasn't put that into the standard. It's not going to be mandated or required by NIST. We've heard a lot from industry that it makes a lot of sense as a way to transition because we don't have a lot of experience with these new algorithms yet. That certainly makes sense to us. So we're encouraging different organizations and applications to look at what makes sense for you. In a lot of cases, hybrid will make sense. It adds more security. Potentially, though, it also increases complexity, and so maybe that's not what you're looking for. So it's all going to depend exactly on who you are and what you're doing. For example, the NSA has said they're not anticipating going to hybrid. They're going to switch just to PQC directly. So other governments have different thoughts. France and Germany have said we're going to require hybrid. So it's going to vary depending on who you are.
And since we haven't talked much about hybrid, for those in the room who aren't familiar with it, basically, as Dustin just said, you take a classic and one or more of the post-quantums. That means at least doubling your key size and adding a lot more processor power. What we heard earlier is speed's going to be very important, such like that. So one of the I think impossible to balance trade-offs is going to be better security against doubling some of the things that you don't want to double. We are standardizing this in the IETF. TLS has a couple different proposals. They haven't settled on one yet. The PKI folks are also looking at that. That's coming later in the standardization. If it's super important to you, please get involved in the IETF. If nothing else, to say, we want you paying more attention to this sooner.
Yeah, and I was going to say, just to add on that, I mean, a lot of that, we're going to have to make sure that we're involved with that planning and looking at that, because it does have an impact to our networks. It has an impact to your environments because, yeah, we talked about the legacy networks themselves today. Are we going to have to build in a gateway to be able to then manage when I'm going from legacy to an upgraded network, to be able to then handle the performance of this key that's going to be coming in, that's going to be doubling size just for adding protection? But someone said it before, we're not going to sit and wait for a 5-minute spinning wheel to get our email. We want to get it now. So how do we maintain that? Because we have end user experiences that we have to make sure that we're maintaining while we're protecting at the same time. How do we then make sure we're ensuring the software that we're supporting on top of here can actually take in those size keys? So it's going to take a lot of that collaboration working together, because it's when you take and look at how the networks are set today and how each one of the vendors are set up with their equipment and how software for the applications are being developed. Some are ready today, some are not ready, and even for some of these other things, just to be able to do that. They'll be able to take it in and consume it, but from a performance standpoint, we've got to make sure that we're keeping that in mind along with security. So.
Any other questions? So I'd like to take the opportunity for thanking all of you for attending, and also thanking the panelists. So some of our panelists traveled specifically for the seminar. So thank you very much for making the journey. Very much appreciated. And Luke, did you want to add anything?
To concur, thank you all very much for the great participation, and to all the panelists for the support they've given this activity. It's been outstanding, and we're very, very grateful. I think we're continuing to build some fantastic momentum within this task force. It's clearly the right place, right time to do it. If there are people in the audience who would like to get involved, then don't hesitate to approach us. As Laura said, we are generally a friendly, collaborative bunch, and we're looking to put as many hands to the wheel as possible to make sure we get there in time. So again, just thank you all for coming. Please hang around. We've got a few cookies and muffins. Eat my muffins, coffee and things, so we can chat afterwards if you've got a little bit of time. But thank you again, everybody, and safe travels home.